Who's Ivan said, I remember you talked about testing a contact form submission tool for lead gen. Do you have any updates on that? Yeah, I did. I do. I posted it in the group the other day. I can't so I was going to go try to find it, but I don't have enough time to find it right now. Anyways, I tested this contact form submission service. They require you to do 10,000 contacts minimum, and it's 4,000, or excuse me, $4, or excuse me, 4 cents per contact form submission. And you have to do 10, like they require a minimum of 10,000 commitments. So that's $400. And then there's a service fee for generating the list. So I think it's like $430. And I tried it and I should have never done it. At least I shouldn't have done it the way that I did it. Okay. So I went ahead and said, you know what? I want to try this. So, and I did. I got one client out of it. No kidding. I landed a client out of it. So it was, you know, the client has to stay subscribed for 4 months in order for it to cover the costs because the only client I got out of it was a $99 a month review client, it's a tree service contractor in Pennsylvania. And we're setting up reviews service for them through High Level. So that's a $99 a month subscription service. And so they got to stay subscribed for 4 months for me to recover the cost, if that makes sense. But I spent $430 and it did, 10,000. But the problem was I could have set up, and I didn't know because I hadn't tested it, and I just pulled the trigger on it and said, screw it, let's just try it, see what happens. And what happened was I put my primary email in that got sent and my mobile phone number that is connected with the High Level account for Tree Care HQ. So that's what I put in there. Was my main email address for Tree Care HQ and my main mobile number for my Tree Care HQ profile, if that makes sense. And what happens is, and I should have known this because I talked about this before, but I used to do voicemail drops with cold prospecting outreach to tree service contractors. And for those of you who don't know what a voicemail drop is, that's where it's a ringless voicemail where it inserts a voicemail into a mobile phone voicemail without the phone ringing or without, you know what I mean? Like, or so, and the way that High Level did it, I don't know if it's still the way that High Level does it, but 4 years ago when I was doing voicemail drops or ringless voicemail, what High Level would do is it would call the phone number. And then while that number was ringing from that one call, it would call a second time, which would, on mobile phones, send it directly to voicemail, the second call. Do you get it? And so it would call the one number and then it would call the number immediately while it was still ringing on the first call. And then it would get to voicemail and then it would insert the MP3 that we would record and add to the campaign or whatever once the voicemail recording picked up or the beep or whatever it was, then it would leave that MP3, insert that MP3. And back then, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was doing voicemail drops and testing for the directory outreach process, the DHA cold outreach process, I was doing cold email and voicemail drops. What was happening with tree service guys back then was they would see a missed call and the voicemail would be on their phone, but they wouldn't even listen to the voicemail. They would just see the missed call and then they would call the number back. And so there was this awkward transition where I was receiving calls throughout the day from tree guys that I had sent a voicemail message to that specifically was telling them, hey, I sent you an email with your company's contact information as we understand it. We're trying to confirm it for your directory listing on the treecarehq.com directory. Go check out your email. And if you take a moment to reply back, let us know if it's accurate or if any changes are needed, blah, blah, blah. They wouldn't hear any of that. They would just call me. And so I would answer the phone and there'd be this awkward, like, hey, you called for an estimate. And then there would be this really strange and awkward kind of transition where I would try to recover that conversation and steer it away from like them thinking that I'm trying to get an estimate for a tree service to, hey, I'm trying to, it was very strange and awkward. And so it just didn't work out. So I turned it off and I just went to straight cold email. Well, when I started this campaign with this contact form submission service, I put my phone number in and my email in. And so what happens is this company went out and hit 10,000 contact forms from tree service companies across the United States over the course of like 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it was. And I would get hammered with calls. I mean, for the last couple of weeks, guys, I'd get dozens and dozens of calls from tree service contractors per day on my phone. And so I just let them go to voicemail. I'm not fucking answering the phone. And I also got a shit ton of SMSs. I also got a whole lot of emails because a lot of those contact forms are through like Jobber and stuff like that now that have automations. And so when the contact form is submitted, it sends an SMS confirming acknowledgement of the contact form submission. So I just got over the last several weeks, I've been hammered with SMSs, emails, and voicemails from tree service contractors that thought I was asking for an estimate request when really I was pitching them on a review service. I did end up getting one client out of it. And by the way, it is kind of interesting, and just to be very clear, because we're going to run out of time in a minute anyway, as I was worried we weren't going to have enough time or we're going to have enough questions. Um, What's interesting is, so I do have all of these contacts came in through high level, right? Because I used my high level, my email address, which is integrated with high level, the SMTP. So every email that was received created a contact record in high level. Every SMS or voice call received created a contact record in high level. So even though it was very annoying and disturbing throughout the day to have all those SMSs and emails and voice calls coming in and all that kind of stuff, and I just ignored most of them, I now have thousands, literally thousands of new tree contractors in my database in TreeCare HQ high level account, if you get what I'm saying. So I can go in and now I've got a whole new set of contacts that I know I have direct communication with because they replied to my contact form submission, right? So in all reality, even though I've only sold one client because I was the only one that I actually ended up communicating with, I have literally hundreds, if not over 1,000 or more contacts that are now in the database that I know I have valid communication with. Does that make sense? So how would I have done it differently? Well, now that I know how it works, what I would do is set up, and I'm willing to try it again, but I got to do some setup first. And that is in high level, I can set it up to where I issue a new phone number so that all the replies coming in on that phone number are isolated to this one campaign, right? So I could add a new phone number to high level that would be dedicated to this contact form submission campaign. And then I would create an automation that would have, basically any reply from this particular campaign. It would, then send an automated reply back, right? So, for example, if I got an inbound text message or an inbound voicemail from one of these contractors that we submitted the contact form submission service, that we contacted them through their contact form submission, and they reply back, it would send an automated message to them that would then clarify or kind of add more detail as to what the contact request was about, if that makes sense. So I can automate the replies to the initial responses that came back from the contact form submission. Now that I know how it works, I could do that. It would take me, a few hours to set it up, but I could set up a landing page. I could set up voicemails so that, like, in MP3s, so that I could send voicemail drops. So in other words, if a call came in and or an SMS or something, then I could have an automation to do a voicemail drop to that number. So in other words, a call comes in and we'll put a wait step in for 2 minutes or whatever it is, and then it would say, okay, now send a ringless voicemail back to that number that call came in on. And so it would then send a message, a voicemail message that would say, hey, you replied back to our contact form submission, but I'm not actually looking for tree services. What I was trying to do is whatever. Look, here's the thing. If I set all that up to where I can basically provide more detail about what it is that I'm pitching in an automated way, then across 10,000 contacts, what do I care? I don't care if I piss some people off. I got one out of, with no kind of follow up, no automation or nothing built into this first test campaign. I did get one client out of it. I spent $400 to secure that client, but I got one client. Now that I know how it works, if I take the time to go through and set it up to where I have automated replies and responses, etc., then I could do it again the next time, and I likely will get significantly higher number of closes out of it, right? So anyway, I'll give you guys more detail on that when I have time to kind of post-mortem look at all that stuff, right?